All right, let's talk about a fundamental law of the universe. One that is beautifully simple as it is brutally effective. It's called F around to find out. Okay, for a certain part of the population, class has been in session and the tuition is paid in regret. So today I'm going to talk about what happens when the monster that you vote for, cheer on, and make excuses for finally turns around and decides you're on the menu, kind of like the leopards. Now, we're going to head to Minnesota, where a group of Somali-American Republicans have had a rude awakening. See, they thought they were part of the club. They were the good ones. The MAGA hat was going to protect them like a shield. But they just learned recently, in the most humiliating way possible, that to Donald Trump, they were never allies. They were just the next target. So it all went down during the infamous cabinet meeting, where the president, in a rambling xenophobic tirade, set his sights on the entire Somali-American community.
Somalians ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? Somebody say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country is no good for a reason. Their country stinks. We're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage.
So, yeah, he called Ilhan Omar and her friends garbage. And by extension, he's also calling all Somali-Americans garbage. Okay, again, shouldn't be a surprise here.
The Republican Party's racist.
Now, for some, this is just another Tuesday, okay? But for some and Fiqy, it was the day that the floor kind of fell out from under him, okay? So you see, this guy is or maybe was a Trump supporter. So, and look, his support of Trump wasn't quiet, okay? It wasn't I'm going to hold my nose and vote for him, right? No, this was active. He was enthusiastic. This was, again, Somalis for Trump, okay? Just last year, Trump's own campaign reached out to him, asking him to help organize and rally the Somali community in Minnesota behind Trump. And he did it. He stood at the podiums. He did the outreach. He proclaimed himself MAGA. I am a Somali for Trump. And what happened? Well, funny enough, and not surprising enough, that wasn't all that effective. Kamala Harris, while she did lose some support in the East African precincts in the 2024 election, she still ended up garnering about 80% of the vote in those areas, according to the Star Tribune. Okay, so she did pretty well, although he did peel off a few of these people, like Salmon. Now, he said, quote, well, we were just giving him the benefit of the doubt. The alternative, Kamala Harris, was even worse. Wait, how? How could Kamala Harris be worse than what we're hearing right now? I mean, okay, to be fair, the issue of Palestine, she sucked on. Okay, but so did a lot of the Democratic Party officials. Okay, Trump also, though, you got to remember, he allowed Israel to continue its attacks as well on Palestine while continuing to fund them. And even the so-called peace deal that is happening now is constantly being violated by the Israeli military. And by the way, all of this is ignoring the fact that Trump has been attacking Muslims for years. You guys remember he tried to do a Muslim ban in his first term. So think about that when you think about the mental gymnastics of supporting Trump as, you know, an immigrant. Okay, it takes a lot. You've got to believe that when Trump attacks immigrants, that, oh, he doesn't mean me. No, he means someone else. No, he's not talking about me. You have to convince yourself that when he talks about people from certain countries, you know, the shithole countries that he talked about, Well, he's not talking about your war-torn home that your family had to flee. You have to believe that your conservative values or your frustrations with the Democratic Party makes you different, makes you one of the good ones. You have to believe that the MAGA hat is going to shield you from the rampant racism in that party. And then you end up watching the man that you championed call you, your family, and your heritage garbage in front of the whole world. Fiqy's reaction, of course, was shock. Quote, Trump turned against us, and I cannot participate in bashing my own community. Look, that was pretty much a gut-wrenching moment of clarity, followed by a question that just kind of hangs there. What's the point of affiliating with these people, with Republicans? And that right there, that's the sound of finding out. It is realizing that the movement that you joined was never about your shared values. It was about a hierarchy. And as a black Muslim immigrant, you were never going to be anywhere near the top. Okay. Now, the Minnesota GOP, which had opened a Somali community center to court their vote, was silent. Not a word of support to the Somali community. You even have a Republican state representative, Walter Hudson, who had personally worked on the outreach to that community, said that while he doesn't agree with Donald Trump's remarks, he's not going to condemn them. Think about that for a second. What does that mean? He's not going to condemn Trump calling an entire community garbage. That's not just being silent. That is being complicit. It is the party telling this man, Salman, and the rest of his Somali Republican friends exactly where he stands. You were used for the photo op, right? But when the leader decides to throw you under the bus, well, they're just going to just stand there and watch. Trump's rant, by the way, capped off weeks of escalating attacks against the Somali community. He'd been falsely linking them to fraud and gang violence. And even though he admitted himself that the Somalis had absolutely nothing to do with a recent crime, but he targeted them anyway because it's convenient. He goes back to that well consistently, to the well of racism, to dip right in. He threw out some BS stats with no context, nothing like that. Oh, the welfare is at 88% or something. Once again, this is a classic tactic used to paint an entire community as like a parasitic drain. Let me tell you what a real parasitic drain is. The extremely wealthy in this country. But the words here are pretty deliberate too. Garbage stinks, they contribute nothing, etc., etc. It's not just factually wrong, it's dehumanization, right? Which is a tool that has been used throughout history to make atrocities against a group of people much more palatable. And it's not just offensive, as Jelani Hussein of Care, Minnesota said, it is quote-unquote dangerous and racist. It is rhetoric that puts real families in danger. Okay? But that's what they're doing. Okay? That's what they're doing. Now, this entire incident, okay, just destroys the argument that Trump, his racism isn't, it's just a bug, not a feature. And that he's not actually racist. Okay. I mean, we've heard the excuses for years, right? That he's not politically correct. He's just joking around. And that he's fighting for the little guy. Really? Well, Salman and Somalis for Trump, they swallowed it. Hook, line, and sinker. They identified with the Republican platform on economics or social conservatism and saw themselves as the little guy that Donald Trump was supposedly fighting for. They learned the hard way that in MAGA, the little guy is always white. The moment that you are no longer useful to them, well, the mask doesn't just slip off. It gets ripped off. Okay? And we see exactly who these people are. This is the very definition of ever on to find out. You messed around bylining with a movement rooted in xenophobia. You effed around by believing that a man who launches political career questioning the birthplace of the first black president would see you as an equal. And now you're finding out that your community is being called garbage on TV. Okay? Your GOP allies are nowhere to be found, and the government is coming after your neighbors. Yeah. State Senator Zanam Mohammed pointed out the deafening silence from the other side, asking, where are the Republicans now? Well, the Republicans are right where they've always been, right behind Donald Trump. I mean, Vice President J.D. Vance was striking the table in agreement during Trump's rant. The White House press secretary, she even called it an epic moment. And the silence from the rest of the party, understand that it's not cowardice, it is consent. This is the core operating system of the MAGA movement. It has always been about defining who is and who is not considered a real American. So the lesson here is pretty clear for this community. When someone shows you who they are over and over again, maybe you ought to believe them, okay? The MAGA movement has been showing us who it is for years. It is a movement where loyalty is a one-way street, and human dignity is always conditional. And now some people are starting to learn that the hard way. If this video helped you cut through the BS and see what is really happening, then smash that like button. Every single like pushes back against the right-wing propaganda machine. I can't do this work without your support. So please check out my Patreon. Link is in the description of this video. For a few bucks a month, you can help keep this channel independent from corporate BS. So hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's keep fighting for democracy and against fascism together.